Hello and good evening, everybody. It is me. I am back. We're here for Bible study for Overthinkers. Good to see everybody. If you guys have not already, make sure to please hit that thumbs up. I truly appreciate you guys. I missed you guys over this past weekend, and I am super excited to be back. I know that it really was, we only missed Sunday, but I mean, it just felt like so long. So I am glad to be back. And in fact, I'm going to just remind myself I need to fix the camera in a second, point it down a little bit more. But anyways, good to see everybody. I hope everybody had a great 4th of July weekend. I know that we surely did. If you guys missed it, go I posted a few videos and pictures over on my Instagram account, but I will, over the next day, meaning tomorrow, I will make sure to start posting things here on Rumble and to YouTube as well, so that you guys can see all the fun. I know that you've heard Brian talking about it all week. If you've been watching daily, he's been talking about all the things. So like the brisket and the ribs and all the things. But we had a great 4th of July weekend, but I did miss you guys. I did miss being able to hang out with you guys, and yeah, but I'm glad to be back. We are actually tonight going to be jumping in to a new book of the Bible unlocked. We finished up Joshua this time last week, and tonight we are going to be starting the Judges. So Judges is what we're going to be starting tonight, and honestly, I'm very much looking forward to it. It's going to be a good time. So I hope that you guys are strapped in and ready to get to it. Before we jump in and start our reading, we are going to thank a few of our sponsors, because we would not be able to keep this show going if it was not for them. So first up, of course, as our first sponsor for our Thursday is Loaded Gun. Make sure to shop and get some of the Loaded Gun coffee and use my code Jackie for a discount. This episode is fueled by Loaded Gun Coffee, veteran-owned, small batch roasted, and bold enough to actually taste as strong as it smells. They're all about quality over gimmicks, and every bag is roasted to order, so it's fresh when it hits your doorstep. You can grab your favorite roast at loadedguncoffee.com and use code Jackie Espada for 10% off your order. Support small business, drink bold, and start your day the clean way with Loaded Gun Coffee. I was muted. Thank you, Tracy and Jennifer, for letting me know that I was muted. So I wanted to say thank you to Loaded Gun. Thank you, Loaded Gun, for sponsoring this show. And we fixed the camera, and we're not muted anymore. So there's that. Tracy, I trust me. I found that your message was coming through. I realized that. It just give me a second to actually notice it. Hopefully you will hear me here in a second. But anyways, thank you, Loaded Gun. Next up, our next sponsor is In His Word, and they actually have brand new gear. They have gear that includes new hoodies. They have new sweatshirts and t-shirts. They also have new houseware as well. So thank you to In His Word for also being a sponsor of this show. I'm so excited to tell you about In His Word, a woman-owned, family-run Christian brand from the Pacific Northwest. 3 sisters and their mom started this business out of their kitchen, creating faith-based apparel and home goods designed to keep us rooted in God's Word. Every design is prayed over, crafted by hand and made with the mission of helping you carry scripture into your everyday life. Whether it's a bold reminder or something more subtle that keeps your heart steady, you can shop their collection at inhisword.us and use my code JackieEspada for $10 off orders over $70. That's inhisword.us. Faith you can wear and carry wherever you go. I'm not muted this time. I made sure to look because I don't want to keep doing that. Because I say good things when I'm muted sometimes. Like I was on a roll, and then I realized that you guys couldn't hear a single thing that I said. So we don't have to mute ourselves for a while. So we're good. But anyways, hello everyone. I see you guys slowly piling in here. So glad to see you. If you guys have not already, make sure to please hit that thumbs up. If you guys will be so kind as to also just say hi real quick in the chat. You don't have to stay in the chat. Just drop a quick hello emoji. It could be one of the emotes that are in the chat. It could be a period. Something simple, because Rumble recently upped the ante for us Rumble creators, and now for every month we have to get 75 unique chatters, and on average I was only ranging about 55 unique chatters a month. So it's definitely imperative if you guys would be so kind to just drop in the chat, say hello, and keep me in the program if you would be so gracious. Anyways, the Bible that I'm reading from, because we're starting a new book. We're reading Judges now. I'm reading from the She Reads Truth Bible. This is the Christian Standard Bible. You can find and purchase one yourself if you would like. In the description of this video, you can see my Amazon my Amazon storefront. That Amazon storefront, if you guys, whenever you purchase anything through Amazon, if you guys would click on that link first, I get credit for whatever purchase you make after clicking on that link. So last month, you guys were able to get me over the top and get me the bonus for the month of June. So I appreciate you guys. It was only $10 extra that I got, but $10 is $10, and I appreciate it. So thank you guys for helping me by clicking on that link for Amazon. Before you do anything, it's just a simple thing. I know that some of you guys have in the chat even said that you guys bookmark that tab so that whenever you go to purchase anything through Amazon, you automatically know, click on that link first and it'll take you over to Amazon so that you can make whatever purchases that you normally would make. So appreciate you there. And let me open up my handy dandy notebook so that I can get my notes up so that we can start reading. We are in for a fun time. Judges, we're going to be only reading through chapters 1 through 4. But this is going to be really cool because we're going to, talking about the first judges of Israel. And, before we read anything, I want you to know what kind of book that we're going to be walking through. So, Judges is not a hero book. You've probably heard of Samson and Delilah, or Gideon and his fleece, or Deborah. And those stories are in this book. But if you read Judges thinking it's a collection of inspiring tales about godly leaders, you're going to be confused and disturbed within a few chapters. So, Judges is a diagnostic book. It is the Bible putting on its clinical coat and showing you with unflinching honesty what happens to a covenant community when it stops passing the story on to the next generation. So basically, what happens when worship drifts, or what happens when everyone does what is right in their own eyes and not in the eyes of God. So the phrase, "in those days, there was no king in Israel, everyone did whatever seemed right to him," appears 4 times in the book of Judges, twice at the end of the book and referenced in chapters 18 and 19. So it is the book's own editorial summary of itself, not like a neutral description, but it really is kind of like an indictment here. So what is a judge? It's not necessarily what we think of when we think of judges. It's not a courtroom judge in the modern sense. The Hebrew for judge is shofet, and what I'll do is I'll throw it in the chat so that you guys can see it. So shofet, and I'll put it up on the screen as well. So shofet means something closer to a ruler or a leader or even like a deliverer. So someone who writes what has gone wrong. So the judges in this book are military deliverers as much as legal authorities. God raises them in response to Israel's crying out. And they aren't appointed through moral succession. They appear, they deliver, they die, and then the cycle starts again. So that is what we've got going on in this book. So that's what a judge is. The structure of this book. The book here has a clear repeating pattern that scholars call the Deuteronomic cycle, because it reflects the covenant language that was used back in Deuteronomy. So it goes like this. First, we have Israel doing evil, which in this case is going to be serving other gods. Then God's anger burns. So he hands them over to an oppressor. Then Israel cries out, which is while they're under the oppression. Then God raises a judge or a deliverer. After that, the rest comes while the judge is living and in reign, or not reign, but you know what I mean, in ruling. The judge then dies, and then the cycle begins again, but it is worse than before. So we'll see that as we go through this. The key word here, though, is worse than before. The book doesn't cycle at the same level. What it does is it kind of spirals downward. Each cycle is more chaotic, more violent, and more spiritually degraded than the last. By the end of Judges, Israel has come pretty close to destroying one of its own tribes, and the final 2 chapters contain some of the most disturbing events. So, this is not accidental. The narrator is truly showing you a society in free fall and tracing exactly how it got there. So, the connection, though, back to the last book that we just finished reading, Joshua ended more on a hopeful note. The exact lines were, Israel worshipped the Lord throughout Joshua's lifetime and during the lifetimes of the elders who outlived Joshua. Then Judges tells what happened the moment after that generation was gone. So we see the contrast immediately, and we're going to be in for a good time. We have plenty to get through. This book itself covers roughly 325 years of history. We have, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 judges. 11 judges, 350 years approximately to cover. Lots to cover, but it's going to be a good time. So Joshua 1, or Judges. We just finished Joshua. Judges. I will say, before, if this is any consolation to you, I think you need this Bible that I'm reading from, because it tells you how many years the judges reigned for. That's pretty cool. Also, timeline. I mean, I'm a big fan. I like to see charts and maps and all of that. So I would highly encourage you to get this Bible. All right. Let's get into it. We are reading and starting with Judges chapter 1. Before we get into it, though, the theme here. We have the conquest continues. We tribe by tribe after Joshua's death. We start with real victories, but end with a long accumulating list of failures. So the pattern is identical across the 6 tribes, the Canaanites are driven out, or not driven out. By the last verse, it's not even Israel falling or failing to drive out the Canaanites. So the direction of failure is accelerating, and it's going to get ugly very quickly. So let's get into it. Chapter 1 of Judges. Judah's leadership against the Canaanites. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites inquired of the Lord, "Who will be the first to fight for us against the Canaanites?" The Lord answered, "Judah is to go. I have handed the land over to him." So, first thing Israel does after Joshua dies is they inquire of the Lord. And this right here, we know after everything that they kind of did in Joshua, is the right move. This is Joshua 9 learned. Don't act without consulting God first. They ask a very specific question. Who goes first against the Canaanites? And God gives them a very specific name. He tells them it's Judah, and I have handed the land over to them. So we love to see this. We hope that they continue this, but they're probably not. This is going to be the last time, spoiler. But the reason why they're going to continue to fail over and over and over again is because they didn't learn, and they continue to just act on their own free will without consulting God first. So not a good look for them, but ultimately they're human, just like we are. But this is a lesson to us too. We should absolutely, in everything that we do, be consulting God, right? So, are you doing that? I know that I'm probably not doing it as much as I should. So, you guys in the chat can also own up to it. All right, verse 3. Judah said to his brother Simeon, Come with me to my allotted territory, and let's fight against the Canaanites. I will also go with you to your allotted territory." So Simeon went with him. When Judah attacked, the Lord handed the Canaanites and the Perizzites over to them. They struck down 10,000 men in Bezek. They found Adonai-Bezek in Bezek, fought against him, and struck down the Canaanites and Perizzites. When Adonai-Bezek fled, they pursued him, caught him, and cut off his thumbs and big toes. Wow. Adonai-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off used to pick scraps under my table. God has repaid me for what I have done. They brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. Wow, well, that escalated very quickly. Judah invites his brother Simeon to join the campaign because, mutual support helps each other in each other's territory. And Bezek, they strike down 10,000 Canaanites and Perizzites. The Adonai-Bezek, or Lord of Bezek, and they cut off his thumbs and his big toes. This seems very extreme, in my opinion. But what's interesting is that Adonai-Bezek, first off, we'll get into the why the thumbs and the big toes. It'll make sense once we get to it. But Adonai-Bezek confesses something. He says that he did the exact same thing to 70 other kings. So he knows, without being told, that what is happening to him is divine justice. I mean, he named it himself. A pagan king articulates the moral logic of the universe. What you do to others comes back to you. So Adonai-Bezek basically had it coming because of how he acted. But why the thumbs and the big toes? Cutting off a man's thumbs made him unable to hold a sword. Cutting off his big toes made him unable to stand or run for battle. He was rendered permanently non-threatening, essentially. He was humiliated and incapacitated, but he was alive, right? Adonai-Bezek had created a court of mutilated kings who scavenged under his table. Israel is simply applying to him what he applied to others. So I have no issues with it. However, it is pretty harsh. But it is what it is. But I'm a big fan. More cutting off the thumbs and the toes, big toes. Jennifer Ray, yeah, you're onto something. She can't even hitchhike at that point. No. I mean, you're just staying there. There's nowhere for you to go, and that's all right. Okay, let's keep going. Verse 8. Excuse me. The men of Judah fought against Jerusalem, captured it, put it to the sword, and set the city on fire. Afterward, the men of Judah marched down to fight against the Canaanites who were living in the hill country, the Negev and the Judean foothills. Judah also marched against the Canaanites who were living in Hebron. Hebron was formerly named Kiriath Arba. They struck down Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. I think that's it, right? Yep. So, Judah fights against Jerusalem. He captures it and puts the sword to it and sets it on fire. But wait, didn't Joshua 15:63, we just read a few weeks ago, say Judah couldn't take Jerusalem? And didn't Joshua 18:28 place Jerusalem in Benjamin's territory? Yes. Yes to both of those. But they both say, those both verses, so Joshua 15:63 and Judges 1:21, both say the Jebusites were not driven out. But Judges 1:8 says Judah captured and burned it. So a few things that I saw that could have kind of done something about this. Either Judah took it temporarily but couldn't hold it, or the two accounts describe different aspects of a partial capture that never resulted in full Israelite control. So, a lot of people say that Judah attacked and burned the lower city, but couldn't dislodge the Jebusites from the citadel on the heights. But who knows for sure. Verse 10. Judah moves against Hebron, already assigned to Caleb in Joshua 14. And then he talks about the three annexed sons, Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai, the same names from Numbers 13:22 and Joshua 15:14. Remember the giants of the spy report? This is the third time they're being named in the Old Testament, each time being defeated. So the thing that was supposed to make a generation feel like grasshoppers is driven out repeatedly until it's finally gone. So that's the thing, guys. Just kind of applying this back to our own lives nowadays. But, if we still, we keep seeing the same thing over and over and over again, that's okay. It's supposed to be teaching us a lesson. And it's supposed to, let's say, I don't know, there's like a fear that you had, like a fear of speaking. God is going to continue to put you in that place until you get over it. Because that's just who he is. All right. Let's keep going. Verse 11 is where we are in chapter 1. Verse 11 says, "From there, they marched against the residents of Debir. Debir was formerly named Kiriath Sepher. Caleb said, 'Whoever attacks and captures Kiriath Sepher, I will give my daughter Aksa to him as a wife.' So O'Neill, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, captured it, and Caleb gave his daughter Asa to him as his wife. When she arrived, she persuaded O'Neill to ask her father for a field. As she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, "What do you want?" She answered him, "Give me a blessing. Since you have given me land in the Negev, give me springs also." So Caleb gave her both the upper and lower springs. So this is just a repeat, almost word for word, of what we saw in Joshua 15. Caleb offered Asa to whoever captured Debir or Kiriath Sefer. O'Neill is the one that does it. He is the future first judge of Israel, which we'll see in maybe chapter 3. So we'll see him in chapter 3. So this is just, a story that's kind of, coming back to the forefront. We'll see the rest of it in just a second. So verse 16 says, the descendants of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law, had gone up with the men of Judah from the city of palms to the wilderness of Judah, which was in the Negev of Arad, or Arid. They went to live among the people. Yeah. Let's keep going. There was something that I was going to say and then I forgot it, but it's fine. All right. Verse 17. Judah went with his brother Simeon, struck the Canaanites who were living in Zephith, and completely destroyed the town. So they named the town Hormah. Judah captured Gaza and its territory, Ashkelon and its territory, and Ekron and its territory. The Lord was with Judah and enabled them to take possession of the hill country, but they could not drive out the people who were living in the plain because those people had iron chariots. Judah gave Hebron to Caleb just as Moses had promised. Then Caleb drove out the 3 sons of Anak who lived there. So, Caleb drives out the 3 sons of Anak from Hebron, which is great. It's done. Complete. The 85-year-old man who asked for the mountains said that he would do it, and he did exactly that. In contrast, in verse 21, which I did not read, we'll read that I'll read that first, and then we'll see the contrast. But 85-year-old man says that he's going to drive his people out, and he does exactly that. Verse 21. At the same time, the Benjaminites did not drive out the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem. The Jebusites had lived among the Benjaminites in Israel to this day. So, the Benjaminites did not drive out the Jebusites in Jerusalem. And it even says that they still live there today. So we see the contrast. It's immediate. It is intentional. In the same chapter, Caleb completes his obedience. And then we see Benjamin completely failing. Back to back. Literally within one verse to the next. One man at the end of his life does what he set out to do. And then a whole tribe of in their prime of the conquest can't do it all. Kind of wild, but it is what it is. Let's see what happens next. The success of the house of Joseph. This is verse 22. It says, the house of Joseph also attacked Bethel, and the Lord was with them. They sent spies to Bethel. The town was formerly named Luz. The spies saw a man coming out of the town and said to him, "Please show us how to get into town, and we will show you kindness." When he showed them the way into the town, they put the town in the sword, but released the man and his entire family. Then the man went to the land of the Hittites, built a town, and called it Luz. That is its name still today. So, Joseph's house attacks Bethel, which was formerly known as Luz, and the Lord is with them. They send spies who see a man coming out of the city. They offer him a deal. Show us how to get in, and we'll show you kindness. And, he shows them. They take the city. and they release that man and his family. This, is pretty cool, though, because that man then goes and, is the land of the Hittites, builds a new city, and calls it Luz. So, cool. But the parallel that this unnamed man from Bethel is kind of the equivalent of Rahab. He collaborates with Israel. He is spared, and he and his family survive. So I love that. But there's a difference here. Rahab was moved by faith. She had only heard about Israel's God, and she believed. This man from Bethel was moved by a deal. So there wasn't really any confession of faith here, and there was no joining of the community in any sense. And he goes and just rebuilds his city somewhere else. The Rahab parallel highlights what's missing, though. It's that faith. She had faith, and this guy obviously didn't. So that is that. Verse 27. And actually, this is the end of chapter 1. So let's see the failure of the other tribes. And we're actually going to... There's a structure behind this. Pay attention to the structure and the pattern behind this. We're going to listen to 5 different tribes and their 5 different failures. Here we go. Verse 27, if you're just joining us, says, "At that time, Manasseh failed to take possession of Beth Shean and Taanach and their surrounding villages, or the residents of Dor, Ibleam, and Megiddo, and their surrounding villages. The Canaanites were determined to stay in this land. When Israel became stronger, they made the Canaanites serve as forced labor, but never drove them out completely. At that time, Ephraim failed to drive out the Canaanites who were living in Gezer, so the Canaanites had lived among them in Gezer. Zebulun failed to drive out the residents of Kitron or the residents of Nahalol, so the Canaanites lived among them and served as forced labor. Asher failed to drive out the residents of Acco, or of Sidon, or Alib, Akzib, Helba, Aphik, or Rehob. The Asherites lived among the Canaanites who were living in the land because they failed to drive them out. Naphtali did not drive out the residents of Beth Shemesh or the residents of Beth Anath. They lived among the Canaanites who were living in the land, but the residents of Beth Shemesh and Beth Amath served as their forced labor. The Amorites forced the Danites into the hill country and did not allow them to go down into the valley. The Amorites were determined to stay in Halheres, Aijalon, and Shaalbim. When the house of Joseph got the upper hand, the Amorites were made to serve as forced labor. The territory of the Amorites extended from the Scorpion's ascent, that is, from Selah upward. So, did you get that? Tribe by tribe. There is a little bit of a pattern here. First up is Manasseh. He failed. He did not drive them out. And he eventually just became forced labor. Ephraim, same thing. Failed to drive them out. The Canaanites lived among them. Then we've got Zebulun. He failed to drive them out, and Canaanites became forced labor. Asher failed to drive them out. Not only did he not drive them out, but he ended up living among the Canaanites. This time the direction was reversed, and they became the minority. Naphtali failed to drive them out, and the residents became forced labor. So the escalation here. We have Manasseh forced the Canaanites into labor, and Asher lived among the Canaanites. He didn't make the Canaanites their servant. He became the resident among the Canaanites. The power dynamic has flipped entirely in one tribe, and this is what incomplete obedience will do. It doesn't hold at the same level you stop at. It starts to slide further and further. So that's what we've got going on there. Let's see. Verse. Oh, that's it. Sorry. We had one more chapter. Not one more chapter. We have one more tribe. We had 5 tribes. We have a 6th one. The 6th one was Dan. And Dan is the one who completely reversed the entire cycle. He didn't fail to drive out the Amorites. The Amorites drove Dan down the hills. So we already saw in Joshua 19:47 that Dan couldn't hold their allotted territory. Here we actually see the consequence. They've been pushed back entirely into terrain the Amorites didn't want. And that's just how it ends. So let's see what happens next in chapter 2. So chapter 2 of Judges. This right here is the theological explanation for everything that happened in chapter 1 and everything that will happen in chapters 3 to 21. So first, we're going to see God send an angel to deliver a verdict. The generation dies, and then the cycle is named, and we are on our way to seeing what happens when a nation doesn't do what it needs to do. So here we go. Chapter 2, pattern of sin and judgment. It says, the angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochim and said, I brought you out of Egypt and led you into the land I had promised to your ancestors. I also said, I will never break my covenant with you. You are not to make a covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You are to tear down their altars, but you are not obeyed me. What have you done? Therefore I now say, I will not drive out these people before you. They will be thorns in your sides, and their gods will be a trap for you. When the angel of the Lord had spoken these words to all the Israelites, the people wept loudly. So they named that place Bochim and offered sacrifices there to the Lord. So, kind of crazy. We see an angel of the Lord. And for those that, we saw this, I think, in Joshua. The same figure that appeared in Joshua comes back with a drawn sword, the commander of the Lord's army. And most people think that this is, a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ. He accepts worship. He speaks in first person. He kind of announces covenant terms and covenant consequences. So, we can kind of assume that's who he is. He comes and he is going to be with the people. And as soon as he tells them, you guys didn't do what you were supposed to do. Soon as he does that, the people start weeping loudly. They name the place Bochim, or the weepers, and they sacrifice them. Grief is real, but is it enough? The text here, it's important to note, doesn't say that they repented. Doesn't say that they removed the foreign altars. It also doesn't say that they renewed their covenant commitments in any concrete way. So they just weep, they sacrifice, and then the narrative just kind of moves on. So grief just that doesn't produce change, honestly, is just grief. And the people's weeping here foreshadows a pattern in Judges, which, again, remember we talked about that at the beginning of the show, where Israel cries out, God responds, and deliverance comes. But the crying out is motivated by suffering, not by genuine sorrow over what caused the suffering. So the pattern will kind of reveal itself pretty quickly. And I hope that you guys are ready for it. First up is Joshua's death. verse 6 for those that are just joining us of chapter 2 of Judges. Verse 6. Previously, when Joshua had sent the people away, the Israelites had gone to take possession of the land, each to his own inheritance. The people worshipped the Lord throughout Joshua's lifetime and during the lifetimes of the elders who outlived Joshua. They had seen all the Lord's great works he had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. They buried him in the territory of his inheritance, in Timnath-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Gaash. I think that's how you say that. The whole generation was also gathered to their ancestors. After them, another generation rose up who did not know the Lord or the works he had done for Israel. So these verses kind of rewind just a little bit, back to the end of Joshua to kind of establish a timeline. And, Joshua dies at 110. God bless him. That's a long time. But, he does all of that. Then verse 10 says the whole generation was also gathered to their ancestors. After them, another generation rose up who did not know the Lord or the works he had done for Israel. This right here is the hinge of the entire book of Judges. So we will get into that in just a second. But what was the biggest question for me as I was reading this? It's just, I don't know, maybe you guys in the chat have some insight, but how does a generation that literally witnessed the walls of Jericho fall, that crossed the Jordan on dry ground, that ate produce from vineyards they didn't plant, how does that generation fail to transmit what they know? Like, how do you just let those stories just die off and not share them with the next generation? I don't know. I just feel like I would want to share that with someone. Like, tell a friend. I don't know. That's just me. I could be the one crazy person. Thanks. Cam said I wasn't crazy. So, that's a good thing. Thanks, Cam. He said it in the chat so you guys can see it too. I'm not crazy. Here's the thing, Tracy. She said Gen Z is pretty messed up. Yes and no. I think Gen Z, as long as they were, like, there's two segments of Gen Z. Gen Z raised by, like, boomers. Not boomers, but Gen X. And then there's Gen Z raised by millennials. If you're a Gen Z that was raised by a Gen X, you're in good hands. It's the millennials, man. Be your own people. I am a millennial, and I don't know, man. Some of these millennials, I'm just like, you sure about that? You sure about that? I'm trying to not be one of those. I'm like I said, I'm one of, like, the late millennials. It's like my brother would be a Gen Z. And I do question his choices. So, yeah. See, yeah, Tracy, you get it. See, that's true. Yeah, if you're a Gen Z raised by a Gen X, you're okay. Like, my brother was a Gen Z raised by a Gen X. He's okay. But he still has those Gen Z tendencies, and I'm like, hello? Is anybody home? Um, so yeah. We just talked about cycles. Maybe this was the cycle for them to learn. That's also true, Jennifer Ray. FAFO, if you will. That's also true. And I think we learn best from actually going through the things. So I could also see that being the case. So yeah. I could see that we're, going through that cycle now of finding out. We did we saw the FA at the early parts of the 2000s and 2010s. Now we're in the FO. Here for it. All right, let's keep going. We're on chapter 2, verse 11. Ooh, now we're gonna get to the balls and the Ashtoreths. These are fun times. Anyways, here we go. Verse 11 says the Israelites did what was evil in the Lord's sight. They worshipped the Baals. Is it the Baals or the Baals? I like the Baals because I think it's silly. I don't know. Balls or Baals? You guys let me know. Oh, okay. They worshipped the Baals and abandoned the Lord, the God of their ancestors who brought them out of Egypt. They followed other gods from the surrounding peoples and bowed down to them. They angered the Lord. Yeah, no kidding. For they abandoned him and worshipped Baal and Ashtoreths. Well, guys, don't follow the Baals. Don't worship the Baals. Jennifer, you may be onto something. They may be crusty balls. We're not following them, though. If we're looking at Leviticus terms, they are crusty. But anyway, but they didn't just, this generation, they're drifting. And they're not just drifting spiritually. They have adopted specific replacement deities. They have the Baals. The Baal or Baal, pick your poison, means Lord or Master. It's a title. It's not necessarily a proper name. There were many Baals. I am a big fan of this right now. There are many Baals. Local manifestations of Hadad, the Canaanite storm god, worshipped as the lord of weather, fertility, and rain. The Baals promised agricultural productivity. In a farming community, which this very much was, they were dependent on rainfall. The temptation was obviously, very visceral. The god of rain controls your harvest. If you don't worship him, your crop fails. But we serve an almighty God who literally makes everything new and will let the rain fall whenever he so pleases. So maybe we shouldn't be putting our trust in Baals. Just saying, don't trust the Baals. I actually need to make that in a shirt. How many times can we say balls? Let's find out. I will just say balls all the time, Jennifer. Don't tempt me. Anyways, Ashtoreths. Ashtoreth, or Astarte, in Greek, was the primary Canaanite goddess. She was associated with fertility, love, and war. She was the female counterpart to Baal in the Canaanite pantheon. Now I want to look what Ashtoreth and Baal look like, because do you want to see some balls? It's not anything bad. Relax. Here it is. See, we've got this is Baal. I think, is that the man? And is this the woman? Ashtoreth? That's them? Yeah. This is also an Ashtoreth? We've seen this one, right? I mean, these are all Ashtoreths. All the females. So, that, the Ashtoreths and the balls. I need to make sure I write down. Actually, I can write it right here. Boom. What was it? Don't trust the balls. Trust the Lord. I like that one too, Cam. All right. If I make this a shirt, will you guys buy it? Okay, Cam said he would buy it. Great. One shirt for Cam. Coming right up. All right, enough of the balls. Actually, maybe not done yet with the balls. Let's see. I'm looking at my notes. Wasn't that at the gates of hell? Yes, it was, Jennifer Ray. Yes, it was. It sure was, because they worshipped Baal. And the balls. And Ashtoreth. So, yes, they did. That was... Thank you, Jennifer, for bringing that up. I actually was watching The Chosen today, so... Season 5, Episode 3. Coming to you on Sunday at 7 p.m. Why did Israel find these gods, these balls, and these Ashtoreth so appealing or compelling? They're land gods. They were specifically connected to Canaan's soil, Canaan's weather, Canaan's agriculture, all the things that had to do with Canaan. And when Israel moved from the wilderness into the farming land of Canaan, they moved into a religious ecosystem where the gods of the land seemed directly relevant to the daily survival. But you would think that the God that they served, the God that has proven himself in the wilderness and in battle, would be more than enough for them. But no, they had to go and chase the balls. Because the balls claimed to govern the harvest. And, to a first generation Canaanite farmer, or, that seems like the right thing to do. But God's response is, that's not how this works. We're not doing this, and stay away from the balls. Let's keep going. Let's see what the consequence is. This is now verse 14. It says, the Lord's anger burned against Israel, and he handed them over to marauders who raided them. He sold them to the enemies around them, and they could no longer resist their enemies. Whenever the Israelites were out, the Lord was against them and brought disaster on them, just as he had promised and sworn to them. So they suffered greatly. So, this is the next part. Remember our cycle? First thing is that they stray. Next thing is that God's anger burns. He's not happy with them, and he basically says that he is going to sell them and, get rid of them essentially. But, this is basically covenant curse language. God doesn't necessarily abandon them. He does what he said he would do when the covenant was broken. And he's fulfilling his word. Nothing else. So I'm here for it. Let's keep going. Verse 16. The Lord raised up judges who saved them from the power of their marauders. But they did not listen to their judges. Instead, they prostituted themselves with their gods, bowing down to them. They quickly turned from the way of their ancestors who had walked in obedience to the Lord's commands. They did not do as their ancestors did. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for the Israelites, the Lord was with him and saved the people from the power of the enemies while the judge was still alive. The Lord was moved to pity whenever they groaned because of those who were oppressing and afflicting them. Whenever the judge died, the Israelites would act even more corruptly than their ancestors, following other gods to serve them and bow in worship to them. They did not turn from their evil practices or their abstinent ways. So this is the paragraph where the narrator kind of steps back and kind of explains the structure of the whole book. So, he says exactly, step by step, this is what we're going to see. This is how we're going to see it, Let's see how this plays out, essentially. So, that is what we have so far. Let's keep going. Verse 20. The Lord's anger burned against Israel, and he declared, because this nation was violated my covenant that I made with their ancestors and disobeyed me, I will no longer drive out before them any of the nations Joshua left when he died. I did this to test Israel and to see whether or not they would keep the Lord's way by walking in it as their ancestors had. The Lord left these nations. It did not drive them out immediately. He did not hand them over to Joshua. So, God explains why the nations that weren't driven out are being left. And, the test now is, the remaining Canaanites, the unconquered nations, now serve a different function. They are not obstacles to be overcome. They are now going to be tests to see if they can navigate them. So, that is what we're setting up for the next few chapters. The last verse says, he did not hand them over to Joshua. This is significant. God could have given Joshua complete victory, but he chose not to. The presence of remaining nations is not a failure of the consequence or the conquest. It is a deliberate divine decision. So this is where we're at. Let's go ahead and pause here real quick for a commercial break. First up is our friends over at Tamarack Garden.
Summer is an adventure and bugs are relentless. As an herbalist, I know you don't need harsh chemicals to protect your family. Here at Tamarack Garden, we've got you covered with natural sunscreen, mosquito and tick repellent that's even safe for your pets, a salve to draw out bug bites, and soothing sunburn cream, all made with the power of plants. Because we think summer memories should last longer than the bug bites. Tamarack Garden. Protect your family naturally and eat your weeds.
We love Tamarack Garden, and I was able to catch a few minutes of the interview of Papa Mechanic. That was a lot of fun. He was, good storyteller, for sure. If you guys missed it, he was over on Sit Rep with the boys talking about Nam, because he was a helicopter pilot, right? Yeah. So that was a good time. So if you guys missed it, go and check that out. I will be sure to finish the rest of the interview because it was a good one. Let's see. Oh no, ZBM missed it. She missed our conversation about balls. I envy you. I envy you for not having been part of that conversation. But it is okay. It is definitely okay. Anyways, let's keep going. We're on chapter 3 now. Chapter 3 is going to introduce us to our 3 judges. First 3 judges. O'Neill, we already kind of heard a little bit about him. He is our template. He is the clean, complete, no complications guy. We have Ehud. He is the left-handed assassin whose story involves one of the most viscerally violent, not gonna lie, and darkly comic scenes in the Bible. It's kind of strange and ridiculous and gross. So, hope you're ready for that. We've also got Shamgar. He gets 1 verse, and he kills 600 Philistines with a farming tool. So yeah, all 3 show God working through unexpected instruments. So let's jump into it. Chapter 3. Here we go with the Lord tests Israel. So these are the nations the Lord left in order to test all those in Israel who had experienced none of the wars in Canaan. This was to teach the future generations of the Israelites how to fight in battle, especially those who had not fought before. Those nations included the 5 rulers of the Philistines and all of the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites, who lived in the Lebanese mountains from Mount Baal Hermon as far as the entrance to Hamath. The Lord left them to test Israel, to determine if they would keep the Lord's commands he had given their ancestors through Moses. But they settled among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. The Israelites took their daughters as wives for themselves, gave their own daughters to their sons, and worshipped their gods. So, the chapter here opens by naming the nations left in the land. We have the 5 Philistine lords, all the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites. So, we have the reason. This is the reason why they're there, is to test Israel and to see whether they would obey the commands the Lord has given them through Moses. And then verse 3 adds, also to teach them warfare, so that the generations that hadn't experienced conquest battles would learn to also fight. So God had 2 purposes for the remaining nations. We have a moral test of faithfulness, and then we have practical training for military. And both of those are stated openly. So what actually happens is that Israel lived among the Canaanites, the Hivites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And they started to intermarry and to start worshiping each other's gods. And that right there is honestly the 2 most intimate forms of human life. Who you marry and what you worship. So they started the assimilating process here, and not in just politics or economics, but in the bedroom and in the altar. So we'll see what happens next. Verse 7, let's go ahead and meet our first judge, O'Neill. The Israelites did what was evil in the Lord's sight. They forgot the Lord their God and worshipped the Baals and the Asherahs. The Lord's anger burned against Israel, and he sold them to King Cushan Rishathaim. Don't say that 3 times fast. Of Aram Naharaim. And the Israelites served him 8 years. The Israelites cried out to the Lord. So the Lord raised up O'Neill, son of Kenaz, Caleb's youngest brother, as a deliverer to save the Israelites. The Spirit of the Lord came on him, and he judged Israel. O'Neill went out to battle, and the Lord handed over King Cushan Rishathaim of Aram to him, so that O'Neill overpowered him. Then the land that had peace for 40 years, and O'Neill, son of Kenaz, died. So, this is the cycle in its purest form. Israelites did what was evil in the Lord's sight. Forgetting who he was, started worshiping Baals and Asherahs. The Lord's anger burns, and they are oppressed for 8 years. Well, before we, get into the 8 years, they're sold to a king. Then they suffer for a time. In this case, it's 8 years. And then the Israelites cry out. The Lord sends them a deliverer, the judge. And then they get the Spirit of the Lord comes on him. He judges them. Go to battle. King handed over. Prevails. 40 years of happiness. That is the kind of the structure that we're going to be dealing with. Why is O'Neill the template? O'Neill is the template here. This is kind of blueprint guy. From here, we're going to see deviations and time extensions and all of that, but this is their template guy. And his story had no complications, it had no failures, it had no moral shadows. That's why he's the template. He is introduced as a capable warrior in Judges 1, which we recently read. He receives the Spirit, he delivers Israel, the land rests, and then he dies. There's nothing wrong with O'Neill's story. Even subsequent judges will have something wrong with theirs. A moral failure or, internal conflict of some sort. But O'Neill is what a judge is supposed to look like. The book shows you the ideal judge first so that you can measure every single deviation from it from here on out. So that is our template that we are following. Let's go ahead and see how our next judge, Ehud, stacks up to our friend here. All right. The Israelites again did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He gave King Eglon of Moab power over Israel because they had done what was evil in the Lord's sight. After Eglon convinced the Ammonites and the Amalekites to join forces with him, he attacked and defeated Israel and took possession of the City of Palms. For those that don't know, City of Palms is, in fact, Jerusalem. Or no, not Jerusalem. Jericho. So there you go. All right, the Israelites served King Eglon of Moab 18 years. So this is where we are. So the second cycle is about to start. Israelites do evil again. God strengthens Eglon, the king of Moab, against them. He captures them. And it's interesting because the city that he attacks is the city of date palms, or Jericho. This was the first conquered city of the whole Israelite campaign, and it is now under Moabite occupation. And then Israel goes and serves Eglon for 18 years. If you remember from the first judge, they only served him 8 years. Now we're at 18, so that's the first deviation. We have a little bit of an escalation. So let's see what happens next. Verse 15. The Israelites cried out to the Lord, and he raised up Ehud, son of Gera, a left-handed Benjaminite, as a deliverer for them. The Israelites sent him with the tribute for King Eglon of Moab. Ehud made himself a double-edged sword 18 inches long. He strapped it to his right thigh under his clothes and brought the tribute of King Eglon of Moab, who was an extremely fat man. When Ehud had finished presenting the tribute, he dismissed the people who had carried it. At the carved images near Gilgal, he returned and said, King Eglon, I have a secret message for you. The king said, Silence, and all his attendants left him. When Ehud approached him while he was sitting alone in his upstairs room where it was cool, Ehud said, I have a message from God for you. And the king stood up from his throne. Ehud reached with his left hand, took the sword from his right thigh, and plunged it into Eglon's belly. Even the handle went in after the blade, and Eglon's fat closed it in over it. And Eglon's fat closed in over it, so that Ehud did not withdraw the sword from his belly, and the waist came out. Ehud escaped by the way of the porch, closing and locking the doors of the upstairs room behind him. Ehud was gone when Eglon's servant came in. They looked and found the doors of the upstairs room locked and thought he was relieving himself in the cool room. The servants waited until they became embarrassed and saw that he had still not opened the doors of the upstairs room. So they took the key and opened the doors, and there was their lord, lying dead on the floor. Well, that's a story. We'll get to the rest of the story in just a second, but it was graphic, and yeah, like Jennifer Ray said, rude. All of the above. So Eglin is the king, right? Ehud is the new judge, and he makes a double-edged sword. And well, first off, I will say that, let me see. I'm looking at my notes because there was something. There it is. They mentioned something very specific about Ehud. They specifically say that he is a left-handed Benjaminite. Why is that important to mention? I don't think they've ever mentioned anybody's, handedness in any of the stories that we've read so far. But it is important because the Hebrew is literally restricted in his right hand. So he may have been ambidextrous or completely left-handed. In any case, he was a left-handed man in a culture that associated the left hand with weakness or even dishonesty. Guards who searched him for weapons would look at his left hip, where a right-handed man would carry a sword. Ehud's sword is strapped to his right thigh, but it's hidden. So the deliverer is identified by this perceived weakness, and that perceived weakness is exactly what makes this whole plan work. So that is a little backstory on that. Next up, we see, Israel sending a tribute to Eglon. Ehud is the one that is chosen as the tribute bearer. He makes himself a double-edged sword 18 inches long. 18 inches kind of reminds me of the 18 years that they've been suffering. Makes sense to me. But anyways, he eventually goes up to him, and Ehud tells Eglon, I have a secret message for you. The secret message is a sword through the belly. Comes directly from God. And the narrator is not very squeamish. He gives us great detail about the fat closing over the blade and the discharge. It's gross. But the description of a very fat man being killed with a blade so deeply thrust that it is not retrieved is something that kind of, we kind of need that. But that is the word from God. Turns out to be a blade from God. But that happens. And then Ehud is able to escape. He's able to escape, and the Eglon's servants wait outside. And they can smell the discharge that came out of Eglon. And they assume that he's just using the toilet. So they wait, and they wait, and they wait. And eventually, they unlock the door, and they find him dead. So, that's fun. It's not, but it's part of the story, and I think it's cool that the Bible is just putting it out there, You don't often get to see stories like that. Right? DBM, she said, dang, just how hard did that person shove that thing into that man? Exactly. That's a really good question. I don't want to know, if I'm being honest. But anyways, let's continue. Let's finish out chapter 3 of Judges. It says, Ehud escaped while the servants waited. He passed the Jordan near the carved images and reached Sarah. Sarah, sounds right. After he arrived, he sounded the ram's horn throughout the hill country of Ephraim. The Israelites came down with him from the hill country, and he became the leader. He told them, "Follow me, because the Lord has handed over your enemies, the Moabites, to you." So they followed him, captured the fords of the Jordan leading to Moab, and did not allow anyone to cross over. At that time, they struck down about 10,000 Moabites, all stout and able-bodied men. Not one of them escaped. Moab became subject to Israel that day, and the land had peace for 80 years. So, Ehud escapes, and he blows the ram's horn. Everybody comes out to join him, and he tells them, he says, "Follow me, because the Lord has handed over your enemies." And, they seize the fords, they cut off the escape routes, and no one escapes. And they then have peace for 80 years. This 80 years is the longest rate, or the longest amount, like the longest stretch of peace in the book as so far. So this right now is far more, double even, O'Neill's 40. So this could read very optimistically. More rest, right? But the context is very grim. Ehud's 80 years is the longest because the spiral keeps going down. The next piece will be much shorter, and then shorter after that. So that is what we've got there. Last judge that we're going to read in chapter 3 is Shamgar. And this is verse 31, and it says, "After Ehud, Shamgar, son of Anath, became judge. He also delivered Israel, striking down 600 Philistines with a cattle prod." That's it. The cattle prod is a sharp wooden prod. It is about 8 to 10 feet long, and it's used to drive cattle. It's a farming tool. It is not meant to be a weapon. But this verse is showing and establishing that God doesn't need conventional weapons. God doesn't need conventional warriors. God doesn't need a trained military force. One man with a stick can deliver God, or can deliver Israel when God is in it. So Shamgar is the judge's equivalent of David's slingshot, the inadequate, the absurdly inadequate instrument, But we'll get there when we get there. So that is chapter 3. Chapter 4 is a little bit of a shorter one, and this is where we will be ending our study for this evening. So a little bit of a shorter episode, which is nice. Hopefully. We don't know yet because we still got to read the chapter. But chapter 4, Deborah and is it Barak? I think it is. Is it Barak? We're going to go with Barak. All right. Chapter 4. The Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord after Ehud had died. So the Lord sold them to King Jabin of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth of the nations. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord, because Jabin had 900 iron chariots and harshly oppressed them 20 years. So, this is the longest oppression yet, right? And it's the same cycle. Judge dies, they stray, Lord's anger, he hands them over, and they're oppressed. So, 20 years. Let's see what happens next. Chapter 4, verse 4. Deborah, a prophetess and the wife of Lipidoth, was judging Israel at that time. She would sit under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went up to her to settle disputes. So, 3 things in one verse. We have Deborah, her real name. We have her listed as a prophetess, meaning she speaks for God. And she is the wife of Lapidoth. So that is her domestic identity. And then she is judging Israel. So the same word used for all the other judges in this book. She holds court under the palm of Deborah, which is nice because the Israelites, come to her to have disputes settled. And you may be thinking, what does it mean to have a woman that is judging Israel? Some have argued that Deborah's role is a sign of male failure, that, men should have stepped up and she's a rebuke to them. But the text here doesn't say that. The book presents her without apology or explanation of her gender as an anomaly. She is a prophetess in the line of Miriam and Huldah. So receiving and delivering God's words was not an exclusivity or exclusive male function in the Old Testament. So I love this. And the fact that they named a tree after her, the Palm of Deborah, saying that she held court at a specific tree, this is something that's not temporary. She is an established, known, permanent location where Israel comes to her. She is not a reluctant judge. She is actively functioning in the role before the military crisis even begins. So that's where we are there. Verse 6. She summoned Barak, I think it's Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and said to him, "Hasn't the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you, go deploy the troops of Mount Tabor and take with you 10,000 men from the Naphtalites and Zebulunites? Then I will lure Sisera, commander of Jabin's army, his chariot, and his infantry at the Wadi Kishon to fight against you, and I will hand him over to you." Barak said to her, "If you will go with me, I will go on. But if you will not go with me, I will not go." "I will gladly go with you," she said, "but you will receive no honor on the road you are about to take, because the Lord will sell Sisera to a woman." So Deborah got up and went with Barak to Kadesh. So let's pause there for a second. Deborah sends Barak, son of Abinoam, to Naphtali. Yeah. And the message she delivers is kind of framed as a divine command. God basically already has given the battle. He has a specific mountain, a specific tribe, a specific number, specific river. The outcome is declared before Barak even moves. Barak's response is, "If you go with me, I will go, but if you will not go with me, I will not go." So this can be interpreted two different ways. First one being that he has a lack of faith. He shouldn't need Deborah to go. He has God's direct command. His condition here shows kind of, his insufficient trust in God's word. So that is the first way that it could be interpreted. The second one is that he needs appropriate dependence on the prophet. So Barak wants to keep the prophetess with the army as a living conduit of divine guidance. Moses went to battle with the staff that represented God's presence. Barak just wants the prophetess who carries God's word. So I understand that. Deborah's prophecy, though, she says, she doesn't say that she will go. She said, I'm just going to read it. It says, "I will certainly go with you, but you will receive no honor on the road you are about to take, because the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman." So she doesn't say necessarily Deborah will get the honor. She just says a woman. And of course, we, the reader, kind of assume it's going to be Deborah. We will see who it is in just a little second. So that is that. Let's keep going. Verse 10. Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh. 10,000 men followed him, and Deborah also went with him. Now Heber the Kenite had moved away from the Kenites, the son of Hobab, Moses' father-in-law, and pitched his tent beside the oak tree of Zaananim, which is near Kadesh. It was reported to Sisera that Barak, son of Abinoam, had gone up Mount Tabor. Sisera summoned all his 900 iron chariots and all the troops who were with him from Horesheth of the nations to the Wadi Kishon. When Deborah said to Barak, Go. This is the day the Lord has handed Sisera over to you. Hasn't the Lord gone before you?" So Barak came down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. I'm going to pause there for a second. So Barak summons the people, 10,000 men follow, and Deborah goes with him, right? And it's interesting. An interesting detail was inserted here in verse 11. It says, "Now Heber the Kenite had separated from the Kenites, the sons of Hobab, Moses' father-in-law, and pitched his tent beside the oak of Zaananim, which was near Kadesh." The Canaanites we met in chapter 1, verse 16, which was Moses' father-in-law's people. Heber was separated from the main group and moved north near Kadesh. He is camped near Barak, where Barak has just assembled his army. His wife is Jael. So the narrator plants this detail now. The reader doesn't know it, but Sisera, when he flees the battle, is in that, geography of that area. So let's see what happens next. Pause. Verse 14 says, Deborah said to Barak, "Go, this is the day the Lord has handed Sisera over to you. Hasn't the Lord gone before you?" So the battle is declared won before Barak even descends the mountain. Barak goes down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men behind him, and then this book, the CSB, says the Lord threw them into a panic. In Hebrew, it means Hamim, Hamam, and that means to confuse or to throw into disorder. So the same word used at the Red Sea and at other divine interventions throughout the conquest, right? So that's where we are. Let's see what happens next. Verse 17. And I think this is actually how we're going to be ending our study for today. So here we go. It says, "The Lord threw Sisera, all his chariots, and all his army into a panic before Barak's assault. Sisera left his chariot and fled on foot. Barak pursued the chariots and the army as far as Harosheth of the nations, and the whole army of Sisera fell by the sword. Not a single man was left. Meanwhile, Sisera had fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, because there was peace between King Jabin of Hazor and the family of Heber the Kenite. Jael went out to greet Sisera and said to him, 'Come in, my lord. Come in with me. Don't be afraid.' So he went into her tent, and she covered him with a blanket. He said to her, 'Give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty.' She opened a container of milk, gave him a drink, and covered him again. And then he said to her, 'Stand at the entrance to the tent. If a man comes and asks you, "Is there a man here?" say no.' While he was sleeping with exhaustion, Heber's wife Jael took a tent peg, grabbed a hammer, and went silently to Sisera. She hammered the peg, grabbed into his temple, and drove it into the ground, and he died." Jeez. When Barak arrived in pursuit of Sisera, Jael went out to greet him and said to him, "Come, and I will show you the man you are looking for." So he went in with her, and there was Sisera lying dead with a tent peg through his temple. That day God subdued King Jabin of Canaan before the Israelites. The power of the Israelites continued to increase against King Jabin of Canaan until they destroyed him. Jeez. That is pretty intense. Don't want to mess with that lady. But yeah, so Sisera flees and Jael goes out to meet him. She, kind of, I don't know if she seduces him, but, something seducing adjacent. He tells her, stand in the doorway, and if anyone asks, say there's no man there. And then she drives the tent peg through his head. This is quite the opposite of your good old Southern hospitality, if you will. So, yeah. But anyways, someone might ask, is Jabin's act ethical? Heber's family had a peace treaty with Jabin. Jael was technically violating that by killing Jabin's general, but she is acting in alignment with God, Israel's God, and against Israel's oppressor. So we'll see what happens on Sunday. We're going to be reading the Song of Deborah, and from what I understand, she is mentioned. So we'll see what happens with Jael, with Deborah's song. We're still not done with Deborah, but we're going to put a pin in her for now, and we will come back to her judge, because she's a judge. Judge Deborah. We'll come back to Judge Deborah on Sunday. But did I finish reading everything? Yes, I did. We finished reading the whole thing. That is our reading for today. Does anybody have any questions? I feel like, that's bad. Cam said put a pin in her or put a tent peg in her. Too soon. Too soon, buddy. But it's okay. I will accept. I will accept it. But that's where we're ending our study for tonight. Let's go ahead and, yes, hat tip Tracy and Annette. Sorry. Let's go ahead, put a pin in that for now. Let's pray, and then we will wrap up tonight's show. So, Father God, thank you for another beautiful day. Lord, thank you for another opportunity to come together and give you praise and thanks. Lord, thank you for letting us travel safely this last weekend. Lord, let us continue to travel, for I know that everyone is traveling over the summer. Send your traveling angels to everyone that may be traveling this summer. Lord, I also ask you to send your mighty healing powers to every single person in this room. You know what their needs are. Meet them, whether it be financial, physical, mental, whatever it is, Lord. Meet each and every person's need right where they are. Lord, I also ask you to keep our nation safe. Keep our president safe. Give him the wisdom to continue to guide us and keep us in your path, Lord. Lord, thank you for another great Bible study. Lord, thank you for the judges, and fix the corrupt judges that we have now. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen and amen. That is where we are now. Oh, man. So that was fun. What do you guys think? That was a fun little trip down memory lane. Before we get out of here, a few things. I'm going to, first off, there's a quick ad I'm going to do. So I didn't do an ad before, but I will do one now. So, there we go. We hear a lot about crypto, but here's the part most people miss. Crypto was created so you could actually own and control money. Your money, After the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of a bank holding your money, delaying transfers, or limiting access, you're in control. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you've felt that problem. Now fast forward to today, everyone's heard of crypto, but getting started still feels complicated. That's exactly why I use Rumble Wallet. It takes all that complexity and makes it simple. Choose what you want: Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. No complicated setup. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your credit card, debit card, or bank and be up and running in minutes. Once you're set up, you can even support your favorite Rumble creators like me directly. So do this now, scan the QR code or click the link in the description and download Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and you're in the game. In just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. So thank you, Rumble Wallet. Thank each and every one of you guys for being here. I didn't check. Thank you. See, I didn't. Okay. Checking my phone here. I don't see anything over on Cash App or Venmo, which is fine, but I did see this $5 rant come through from ZBM. She said, "Thank you for the prayers. I know it's much needed for everything watching. God bless and cheers, Jackie." Thank you, ZBM. I appreciate you. A few announcements. I actually just, before this show, I released a brand new Substack article. It is a good one, so maybe you guys will check it out. I will drop the link in the chat and I will show you what that is. It is 32 lessons I've learned in my 32nd year. So like I said, I will drop this link in the chat for you guys so that you can check it out if you guys want. It is a free article. I am on here twice. I don't need to be on here twice. What the heck? Anyways, yeah. Check it out if you want to. It's a free article. I know that I slacked a little bit, and I wanted to let you guys know that I haven't forgotten about you guys if you are a Substack reader. For those that have been following along with the paid articles, I've decided I can't do every single episode. It is a lot of work. I can see myself easily burning out. So what I'll be doing from now on is I will be doing an entire book recap. I just finished I'm doing the final touches on the Joshua one, so that will hopefully be released tomorrow, if not Saturday at the latest, but most likely tomorrow. I will have for paid Substack subscribers, the Bible study for Joshua that will be released tomorrow, and then I'll start working on the Judges one, so that by the time we are finished reading through Judges together, that will be released so that you guys can, kind of go back and reference that and have fun with all of those kinds of things. So that is the other thing. I double check here. Okay, good. Saturday, we will have a show. We will have a show on Saturday. I don't necessarily know what it's going to be about just yet. It may end up being a jukebox show. Just you guys are in control of the playlist. We may do that. Probably do that. That, and then Sunday Bible study again. Sunday night, GBS, season 5, episode 3 of The Chosen. If you guys want to watch it with us, if you don't want to, or watch it before the episode. So that. Cam, are you having a show? Cam's having a show on Saturday. So everything should be back to normal, except we may not have light work. Maybe. We'll see. We'll do something, if nothing else, because we're going to be away at the beach. So we'll see if we do anything. Stay tuned to my social media, to my Telegram chat. If you guys are not part of the Telegram chat, check the description to get the link. But yeah, I think that's everything. I love you guys. God bless each and every one of you. July is travel month for us. It is the end of June, beginning of July, very travel heavy for us. After this, should slow down until September. Jennifer will have a show. Says that he will have a show on Saturday. So that's what's going on. If you guys have not already, make sure to please hit that thumbs up. If you guys were lurking throughout the show, drop in the chat. Say hi. If you guys please wouldn't mind. That would be fantastic. That helps with the numbers, keeping me in the Rumble Creator program. Yeah, appreciate you for doing that. But I think that's it. Love you guys. God bless you. Good night. And I'll see you next time. Bye.